أفلح من صلى على محمد وآل محمد. رحم الله من أعادها ثانية. على حب محمد وآل محمد ثالثا بأعلى أصواتكم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. والليل إذا يغشى والنهار إذا تجلى وما خلق الذكر والأنثى إن سعيكم لشتى فأما من أعطى واتقى وصدق بالحسنى فسنيسره لليسرى وأما من بخل واستغنى وكذب بالحسنى فسنيسره للعسرى وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى وما يغني عنه ماله إذا تردى إن علينا للهدى وإن لنا للآخرة والأولى فأنذرتكم نارا تلظى لا يصلاها إلا الأشقى الذي كذب وتولى وسيجنبها الأتقى الذي يؤتي ماله يتزكى وما لأحد عنده من نعمة تجزى إلا ابتغاء وجه ربه الأعلى ولسوف يرضى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
درود بر محمد و آل محمد. بار دیگر صلوات. جانے والا نہ رہا، میدان میں کوئی جانے والا کٹانے والا نہ رہا، جو مارا گیا اس کو اٹھا لائے حسین، شبیر کا کوئی لانے والا نہ رہا، میدان میں کوئی. صلوات. بار دیگر صلوات. حسین بن کے زمانے پہ چھا گئی زینب، حسین بن کے زمانے پہ چھا گئی زینب، زبان طیب سے کوفہ ہلا گئی زینب، زبان طیب سے کوفہ ہلا گئی زینب، قدم قدم پہ جلائے حسینیت کے چراغ، قدم قدم پہ جلائے حسینیت کے چراغ، دیے یزید کے سارے بجھا گئی زینب، دیے یزید کے سارے بجھا گئی زینب، علی کی یاد کو زندہ کیا زمانے میں، علی کی یاد کو زندہ کیا زمانے میں، गई असीर हो गई दर दर फिरी ज़माने में हुसैनियत को मगर जगमगा गई गरीब भाई का गम बांटने को मक्तल में जवां भतीजे के लाशे पे आ गई हुसैन बन के ज़माने पे छा गई ज़ैनब ज़ुबान तेब से कूफा हिला गई सलावत
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. We have a lot of brothers and sisters speak Dari and Farsi. I want to do a rawza on my language, Dari. Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Sallallahu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. وجود نازنین ابا عبدالله تازه چشم به جهان گشود که مادرش فاطمه سلام الله علیها قنداقش را به بابایش رسول الله صلی الله علیه و آله داد. اول کسی روضه حضرت سید الشهدا را شروع کرد رسول گرامی اسلام بود که خبرش برای مادرش فاطمه داد. رسول الله صلی الله علیه و آله فرمود لقد اخبر النبی ابنته الفاطمه بقتل ولدها الحسین. زمانی که رسول خدا خبر شهادت ابی عبدالله الحسین را به مادرش زهرا داد، مادرش زهرا فقط دو سوال کرد. سوال اول یا رسول الله متى یکون ذلک، که این حادثه خواهد رخ داد. فعجبها رسول الله، رسول الله جواب داد جان حسین ما را غریب خواهد گیرد حسین ما بی کس خواهد شد رسول الله صلی الله علیه و آله و سلم فرمود فاطمه جان سوال دوم چیست؟ فاطمه سلام الله علیها فرمود فمن یبکی علی فرمود که بر حسینم خواهد گرید یا رسول الله بیا ببین که این همه عاشقان و محبان ابا عبدالله الحسین اما همه دلها بفدای برادرش حسن علیه السلام غریب در بقی صلوا علی ساکن کربلا صلوات.
My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. عظم الله أجوركم وأجورنا بمصابنا بسيدنا ومولانا أبي عبد الله الحسين عليه السلام وجعلنا الله وإياكم من الطالبين بثأره مع إمام منصور من آل بيت محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. My dear brothers and sisters, like we mentioned yesterday, first, please come forward. Don't sit like at the doors. Brothers, please come here. Thank you. May Allah bless you. Come here. Sisters, please don't sit like in the back. Come forward. You see all this place is just empty. When somebody comes, he has to go through you, has to push you around and all that. So please open, come here, leave the space like in the back there. And please when someone come in, don't say salam, don't kiss and all that. Just wait until we finish the majlis, then you can do that, inshallah. And control the kids, that's a very important. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, inshallah. And let's focus on the musibah, let's focus on the aza of Imam Hussein alayhi salam. Any side subject, if you like to discuss, you can step out, talk as much as you like and come join us. So we don't disturb the majlis, inshallah. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. With your permission, we receive Hajj Hadi ma'a salat ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Is the camera on the right spot? Surah Mubarak al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقي والنور أرش أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين حبيبنا وسيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا ومولانا أبو القاسم محمد وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين أما بعد السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك عليك مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبو الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين سيداتي مولاتي أم المصائب زينب رحمة الله وبركاته. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Over the last few nights, we have been discussing subjects from the past, from the scripture, from history, in an effort to find a means to understand what's going on today. We are detectives going through the annals of time, trying to figure out how did we get to this point today. And therefore on the first night we discussed the story of the people of Lut, how the divine punishment rained upon them, and how the believers that went astray from the will of the Holy Prophet of Islam, the Quran mentions, and it was not that they lost their eyes or their vision, it was that the Muslim Ummah's hearts became blind. On the second night, we did a bit of a history lesson. We did a history lesson to see how did we get to this point? What was it about the sacrifice and tragedy of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam that led to revolt after revolt, that led to different factions of Islam, uprisings of Islam, and how the Shia remained a rebellious force, so much so that even 1400 years later, they take the phrase of hayhat min adilla, no to humiliation, and they wear it every single year during these 10 nights. That we, after 1400 years, after the media suppressed our voices and created and concocted narrative after narrative, stood our ground. We did not forsake our belief. Even when the internal pressures within Islam came against us and they began to call us mushrikeen, people who associate partners with God, and they began to make fun of our men. They say, look at them, their men cry like women. They say, look at them, they hit their chest like gorillas. These are the things that they call the Shia from within Islam. And yet, the love of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein remained in each and every one of our hearts, as though something that you cannot teach, something that our parents gave to us through the inheritance of their parents. And what we discussed last night is that, O youth, especially you young ones, do not take the love of Ahlul Bayt for something that is granted. Do not take it for granted. For many people's lives were lost, and many wars were fought just for you to have this version of Islam given to you by your blessed parents. Imam Sadiq alayhi salatu wassalam says, and when you hear mention of my grandfather Ali, and you begin to get goosebumps, and you're overtaken by joy, make a lot of dua for your parents. For especially your mother, that woman was a pure lady. that not once did she glance at another man, that your birth was of the most utmost halal from this woman that gave birth to someone's heart that has the capacity to have Ali ibn Abi Talib in the heart. As it says in the Quran, قَالَتِ الْأَعْرَابُ آمَنَّا. The Arabs come and say, we have iman. قُلْ لَمْ تُؤْمِنُوا وَلَكِنْ. Say you do not have iman. قُولُوا أَسْلَمَ. Say you are just Muslims, you just have Islam. وَلَمَّا يَدْخُلُوا إِيمَانُ فِي قُلُوبِكُمْ. It is only until iman has entered your hearts that you can call yourselves mu'mineen. And what does Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa say? Ya Ali, la yuhibbuka illa al-mu'min, wa la yaghdubuka illa munafiq. Oh Ali, no heart can be a mu'min except that it accepts you, except that it loves you. And no heart can hate you except that it is full of hypocrisy. So brothers and sisters, with that said, let us carry forward from yesterday's lecture and move on to one of the biggest threats that the Muslim Ummah has faced over the last 200 to 300 years. This threat, unfortunately, comes in the form of Islamic extremism. And Islamic extremism is not something that was born yesterday. It was not something born 100 years ago. It was not something born even 500, 600 years ago. Islamic extremism began during the time of Imam Ali alayhi salam. As you know, when Imam Ali finally became Khalifa, there was this figure by the name of Muawiyah, who is ironically the father of Yazid. You know, the apple didn't far fall from the tree when it came to waging war against the Prophet's most beloved. And during this war that Muawiyah would go against Imam Ali, this battle would be known as the Battle of Siffin. An interesting phenomenon happens. During this battle, Muawiyah, under the advisement of his slippery little assistant, Amr ibn al-As, erects the Qur'ans on spears in front of the army of Ali. From this point, history dictates that Imam Ali's army broke into a faction. There was a group of people that said, hey, Muslims shouldn't be fighting other Muslims. So today, we say that both Muawiyah is wrong and Ali ibn Abi Talib is wrong. And should Ali continue this war, we will stab him from the back and attack him from the back. You know, the narrations say Malik al-Ashtar, Imam Ali's companion, was only 3 lines away from Muawiyah. Imagine a world without Muawiyah. He was 3 lines away from Muawiyah. Imam Ali says, Malik, come back, they've turned against us. Malik says, but he looked at Imam Ali, he knew better than to go against the word of Imam. The people have chosen where they want to stand in history. Let Muawiyah live and let them see what will happen, because they allowed it. So this faction becomes known as the first extremist sect of Islam, and they were later called the Khawarij, Kharijites, people who have exited or seceded from the faith of Islam. Why were they known as extremists? The reason why they were known as extremists was because when they rejected Imam Ali and they rejected Muawiyah, they took the Holy Quran and began to interpret things based on their own rationale. What would make sense to this faction of people would be the truth. And so they had this dilemma. What do you do with a Muslim who commits a major sin? Drinking alcohol. What do you do if a Muslim drinks alcohol? What do you do if a Muslim commits an act of adultery? The Khawarij conclusion was anybody who commits a major sin in Islam is now a kafir. And because they're a disbeliever infidel, we must kill them. And so began the beginning of extremist Islam. Now thankfully, thanks to Imam Ali alayhi salam, in the battle of Nahrawan, which is the battle after Siffin, Imam Ali demolishes these characters out of history. And so this insurgency of extremist-like Islam that you once saw during the time of ISIS, Al-Qaeda, the beheadings you saw in 2014 and 15, that was extinguished because of Imam Ali alayhi salam. So the reason why I'm telling you this is because soon after, or many, many hundreds of years after, a new group of people would enter the scene. Similar to the Khawarij, they would interpret the belief of Islam their own way, and they would apply stringent criteria looking for an excuse to takfir other Muslims. They're not very affected by Christians and the Son of God that they believe in, and they don't care much about the Jews and their extremist views about them being the chosen ones of God, and all other people are created to serve other Jews as highlighted in their holy texts. They're not troubled by that. They're troubled by you, and they're troubled by the other Muslims. They're troubled by the Ottomans. They're troubled by the Sufis. They're troubled by the Hanbalis. They're troubled by the Hanafis. They're troubled by the lay Sunni people. All of these people are kuffar. Now, many people don't understand the weight that word carries when you say it. When you call someone a kafir, first of all, the definition of kafir is someone who covers, someone who is exposed to the truth and turns a blind eye to the truth, someone who has been demonstrated the book, has seen the prophet, and makes fun of the prophet and says, I don't want to accept this religion. This is a kafir. From a social standpoint, a person who is a kafir, an Islamic government will not protect you. Meaning that if Hadi is called a kafir and he lives in an Islamic country and someone comes and robs me, the state doesn't recognize me as a human being. If someone murders me, they will not investigate to find out who murdered me. If someone comes and violates my children and my wife, the Islamic State doesn't consider me a human being worth protecting. So when we hear online these children running around, Shias are kafir and Sunnis are kafir, please understand the magnitude of what you are saying. These are people that have La ilaha illallah in their shahada. These are people that even the Imams of Ahlul Bayt, no matter how misguided they were, never called them kuffar. But we see willy-nilly people throwing around this. And so if you're curious which group of Muslims I'm referring to right now, I am referring to none other than the sect that calls themselves Wahhabis. What an interesting name to call yourself. Well, first of all, brothers and sisters, let us discuss, what is a Wahhabi? What does Wahhabi have to do with the Holy Prophet? Where did this name of this sect even come from? Well, let's get to it. Once upon a time in the 1700s, in the city of Najd, there lived a man by the name of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Wait, so there is a whole sect that's takfiring all the other Muslims and they're named after the last name of someone else? Yeah. So, Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab is known to be one of the hardliners when it comes to understanding belief. The people that influence him are people like Ibn Taymiyyah. Now, Ibn Taymiyyah comes about 400 to 500 years before this gentleman. And if anybody has heard of Ibn Taymiyyah was a Sufi that grew disenchanted with the other Sufis, that applied a hardline perspective when it comes to the worship of Allah. Ibn Taymiyyah, we'll discuss him in later nights when we get into my more favorite topics, discussing Tawheed. But he comes up with this standard. Ibn Taymiyyah, 400 years before Abdul Wahhab, comes up with a standard that he wants to tell people on how Allah should be worshipped. First of all, he calls the Tawheed as two facets. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah and Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah, before I get into this, you know what I love about religion? Religion is that one place that any clown can make a name for himself. You talk about metaphysics, and they all of a sudden become Shaykh al-Islam. Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah said this, and who's this Shaykh al-Islam? I'm Shaykh al-Islam. Imagine, brothers and sisters, I come and I say, Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. I'm Shaykh al-Islam, Hadi Tabrizi. And tonight you have to listen to everything I say. Well, where did you get that? It's okay, I said it, so too bad. I call shotgun. If I call shotgun, that's it, right? So Ibn Taymiyyah called shotgun. He's Shaykh al-Islam Ibn Taymiyyah, and he defines Tawheed in two levels. Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah and Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Let's discuss what this means. Tawheed al-Rububiyyah comes from Rab. It means the professment or the acceptance that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the Lord of all things. Allah is the sustainer, the creator, the highest of the high, and this is the acceptance of Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. Ibn Taymiyyah makes an interesting claim. He says, you know the polytheists, the mushrikeen during the Prophet's time? All of them accepted Tawheed al-Rububiyyah. In fact, there's an ayah of the Quran he points to and says, when they mention who is your God, the polytheists will say, Allah. In fact, the term Allah was not something that the Prophet brought to the pagans. They already had a term called Allah, meaning God. In fact, the Prophet's name before Islam Prophet's father's name was Abdullah, Muhammad ibn Abdullah. So then, Ibn Taymiyyah makes a claim that Tawheed al-Rububiyyah was there even with people that worshipped idols. Now the second point. He says, if you don't have the second Tawheed, you're a kafir. What was his claim? That the people that worshipped idols believed in these demigods, but they still knew that the ultimate creator was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The second one is Tawheed al-Uluhiyyah, that God is the only one that deserves to be worshipped. Because the pagans worshipped idols as well as Allah, they were mushrikeen, and therefore they are infidels. He then points to the majority of Muslims at his time and he says, anybody who asks from a dua, who asks for tawassul or intercession, is in the category of the same people that worship idols. Ibn Taymiyyah said this in 1300s. Now, 400 years later, in Najd, Saudi Arabia, we got Mr. Abdul Wahhab. Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab takes this view and he makes it far more extreme. Do you know what he says? See, in Islam, we have a beautiful criteria. Everybody is innocent until proven guilty. Abdul Wahhab takes this and he says, no. Everybody is a kafir unless proven that they follow my Tawheed. In fact, nobody except me understood Tawheed until this moment. So imagine, in the year 1700, when Abdul Wahhab is coming out, none of the ulama, none of the imams of Ahlul Bayt, none of the khulafa of Rasulullah understood Tawheed until Mr. Abdul Wahhab came out and he said, Allah guided me to this level. Remember I said those clowns that just come up with their own positions? Shaykh al-Islam ibn Taymiyyah. And guess what? Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab. Allah showed me this Tawheed, so you're all kafir. So now he goes on this mission to call other Muslims kafir. In fact, his own brother Sulaiman ibn Abdul Wahhab belonged to the Hanbali sect of Sunni Islam. He too became a kafir in his eyes. And so what happens with Abdul Wahhab is he gets kicked out. He gets kicked out of city after city after city until he comes across a tribe chieftain in the 1800s known as Muhammad Ibn al-Saud. Things are starting to align now where that word comes from. You know that country that was called Hijaz, Arabia, now it's called Saudi Arabia? Yeah. So, what does he do? He has a strategic location, and he speaks to him. He says, look, I got this amazing tawheed here that nobody's understood except me. And I want you to team up with me because you live in this strategic area that allows us to expand and attack other villages and so on and so forth. Eventually, Muhammad ibn al-Saud agrees, and they have a pact. And you know how they seal the deal? Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahhab marries his daughter to al-Saud's son. So now they're family, they're blood. Their children will now have a mixture of Wahhab and Saud. Great combination, great fusion. And what happens is they go on to attack different villages, different cities. And so this extremist ideology that we once discussed during the time of Imam Ali as the Khariji mentality, that if they don't fit a certain criteria, they're kafir, go kill them, would now be applied to the followers of Abdul Wahhab. All Muslims are kafir unless they accept my tawheed, and my tawheed is that you go directly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Anybody in the middle, you're a kafir, you're a mushrik, you're a murtad, you're an apostate, you are bad people. Then they ask him, well, what about the Christians that believe in the Son of God and the Jews and all that? See, they're regular kafirs. I'm not concerned with those guys. I'm worried about the ones who think they're Muslim, but they're actually kafir. So they're double kafir to me, so I want to behead the double kafirs. I don't want the single kafirs, I want the double kafirs. I'm just basically paraphrasing what this guy's views were. His whole mission was intra-Islamic war, because he believed he was a messianic figure that nobody understood Tawheed except him. So what was really happening around this guy that made him become so, sensitive to everything? Well, let's take a look at the teachings that were around at the time. So people were visiting shrines of their saints, of imams. He saw veneration of saints, going and visiting the shrines, going to Imam Hussein's shrine is shirk. Leave the dead. Leave the dead. They're dead. He didn't read the verse where it says, indeed, those who die in the way of Allah are indeed alive. No, according to Abdul Wahhab, they're dead. Don't even send your salam to them. Don't even say sallallahu alayhi wa sallam to the Prophet. Sallu ala Muhammad wa alayhi. Thank you. Thank you, may Allah bless. So don't even send salam to the dead. The second thing is, a lot of the Hanbali schools, they would have relics. Like this was the Prophet's mimbar that he once sat on. So they would go and touch it and say, this has barakah. This is blessed. This is a blessed object. This is a ring that one of our saints wore. This is the cloak that one. Shirk. You're a kafir. The third thing was the concept of tawassul. This one always makes me laugh. Because not only does the Quran say, and seek a wasila to Allah in Surah 5 verse 35, but this guy took it to a new level. You're not allowed to ask anyone for anything except Allah. You ever ask your mom to make a dua for you because you have a test tomorrow? Shirk. Ask Allah. Why are you asking your mom? You ever go to a doctor when you're sick? Shirk. Don't go to a doctor. Go to Allah. Sheikh Qarati in Iran was once in Jannat al-Baqi. And this Wahhabi cleric came up to him and he's like, you Shias. Look how silly you are. He says, what do you mean? He says, look at this pen, Shia. And then he drops it on the ground. Oh, Fatima, pick up my pen. Oh, Hussein, pick up my pen. Do you know what he's referring to? He's talking about in the ayah of the Quran when they say that idols can't do anything for you. he's saying Ali, Fatima, Hassan, Hussein are idols that you worship. You are mushrikeen. Shaykh Qarati is very witty. If anybody's watched his lectures, he's very witty. He's a very funny man. So he takes his pen out of his pocket and drops it in front of the Wahhabi. And he goes, Allah, pick up my pen. Looks like your God can't do anything either. It's funny, but it's sad that this ummah is in this state of affairs. That I go online on Twitter during these few weeks, may Allah destroy them both. Iranians, Shia Iraqis, Shia Lebanese, our blood doesn't matter to these Wahhabis. May Allah support the Zionists, because the Shias are worse. Remember I said Abdul Wahab said they're double kafir? Because they think they're Muslim, but they're kafir. So then, let's go back to our little history lesson of what happens with Abdul Wahab. So he makes it clear that any form of worship, any grave visitation, all of that is bad. It's haram. It's not haram, it's kufr. And he goes a step further than his predecessors. He does something called auto-takfiring. See, Ibn Taymiyyah and Ahmad ibn Hanbal, who were very strict themselves, they said that you have to first explain yourself, give them a chance to understand why they're doing something wrong, and then if they don't listen, call them whatever you want. Abdul Wahab says, no, all Muslims by default are kafir, except if they follow my kitab al-tawheed, my idea of tawheed. This is disastrous, this human being. Now you would think he wouldn't get very far, but he goes on, and the Wahhabi movement makes its way to where? Karbala. Really? Yeah. In the 1800s, they invade Karbala. How many Shias do you think they killed in that raid? During that time, 4,000 Shias were killed in that. And they looted the shrine of Abu Abdullah al-Hussein. And they took the gold and the beautiful relics that they had placed inside the shrine. They said, this is halal for us. So they stole it and ran off. Now eventually, the Khalifas at the time found out about this insurgency. Who were the Khalifas at this point? We discussed yesterday that the last Khilafah that was around before the Mongols took over were the Abbasids. But we didn't discuss what happened afterwards. See, after the Mongols annihilate the Abbasids, they kind of move to Cairo and become these little, like a dead sect or a dead Khilafah. It is at this point that the Ottomans or the Usmaniyun, the Turks, come and they take over Constantinople and establish what would later become one of the largest empires the world has ever seen, the Ottoman Empire. And many of the Arab lands would belong to them, including most of Hijaz. Where was Abdul Wahab from? A city in Saudi named Najd. And the Ottomans got a whiff of what's going on. So in the 1800s, they ran a campaign and crushed Wahhabism. They got rid of it. Now you would think that would be the end, until many, many, many years later, the descendant of Muhammad al-Saud, a man by the name of Abdul Aziz al-Saud, emerges. Remember I said that, they married into each other, Abdul Wahab and the Saudis. This guy is a descendant of him, and he wants to take the Arab lands back from the Ottomans. This is where the hatred between the Turks and the Arabs really start. So he begins to campaign his ancestors' Wahhabism. Goes back to raiding villages in Saudi Arabia. Everyone is kafir. And he starts to pick up a lot of notoriety, not just with other Muslims, but guess who takes notice of this? The British. Ever hear the story or the series of Lawrence of Arabia? The British played a huge role in a lot of things that unfolded. It is now the 1900s, and World War I is unfolding. And the British, when you look at their declassified documentation, were on a mission to split up the Muslim countries. And then they stumbled upon an extremist group of Wahhabis. They hadn't seen this before. In fact, their documents had full analyses on what type of Muslims there were. The British were studying the Muslims for a long time. The enemy was studying our countries and thinking about how they can best colonize us. And so they stumbled across Abdulaziz al-Saud. And at first, his group was so violent. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Thank you. And his group was so violent, they were called the Ikhwan. They were so violent that they began to attack the Brits. They killed a lot of the Brits when they first got into contact. Eventually, the Brits took interest. We could use them. They're crazy, but we can tame them. And so the Brits come up with a protectorate treaty that when World War I unfolds, you will betray the Ottomans and you will help us dismantle that country, or the entire caliphate. And they agreed. And they gave them a lot of benefits. They gave them stipends. They gave them a $20,000 loan. And do you know what the price to hijack all of Islam with Wahhabism was? You know what the price was? You want to see how expensive your religion is? You want to see how easy it is for people to come hijack an entire faith and turn it into a clown show? $5,000 a month. Some of your mortgages are more expensive than how much it took to hijack all of Islam. So, $20,000 loan to Abdulaziz al-Saud, plus $5,000 a month. And now how much money does a Saudi family have? Like you can't even count how much money they have. If you sat here for the rest of your life, you can't count how much money they have. All it took was a little bit of influence. And so now, Saudi Arabia became an antithetical country, the betrayal of the Ottoman Empire, and the face of modern Islam. And their key criteria is spread Wahhabism because everybody is a kafir. So let's look at some of their argumentation here before I go further into history. The argument was originally that even if you believe Allah is your Rabb, He's the Lord of all things, if you ask through anybody else, you're a kafir. You must go directly to Allah. If you ask anything other than Allah, then they consider that as worship, and it goes against Tawheed al-Uluhiyya. Basically, not only is Abdul Wahhab calling all of us kafir, not only is he calling all of the Sunni ulama before him kuffar, he's even calling the prophets of God kuffar. What do I mean? Well, in the story of Prophet Sulaiman, he's sitting in the assembly with his jinn and he goes, who will give me the throne of Sheba? قَالَ عِفْرِيتٌ مِنَ الْجِنِّ. And then the Ifrit from the jinn said, I will get it for you before you stand up. Hey, Sulaiman, why didn't you ask Allah to get you the throne? Kafir. Hey, what about the story of Prophet Yaqub when he went blind with Prophet Yusuf? What about that? Well, what happens? Prophet Yusuf instructs his brothers to return his shirt to his father. When the father takes the shirt, he places it over his eyes and his blindness is cured and his vision returns. Shirk. Why didn't you ask Allah to fix your eyes? Shirk. And we can keep going further and look at every moment where someone other than Allah was asked for help and call it shirk. But we all know that Abdul Wahhab was no Muslim. If anything, Abdul Wahab, if I were to guess, he was in communication with a higher being, but it was not Allah. He says, Allah made it easy for me to process real Tawheed. If you ask me, and this is just my theory, he was in touch with a being that was not human, not angel. You know who he was in touch with? Shaitan. Why, Brother Hadi? Don't accuse other Muslims. Oh, yes, I will accuse. Why? Because in the story of Prophet Adam alayhi salam, what does Allah say? Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. I have appointed Adam a caliph on the earth. Then what does he say? Do sajda to him. Allah, you're doing shirk. Do sajda to Prophet Adam. Allah's doing shirk now, subhanallah. Who was the one that said, I don't want to bow to Adam, I want to bow to you? Iblis. Allama Tabatabai rahmatullah alayh, a scholar of scholars, an arif in his own regard, a mufassir of the Quran who dedicated his life to understanding the teachings of the Holy Prophet. You know what he says? For the ones that make an argument that you go directly to Allah, say to them, did Allah come directly to you? Did Allah come directly to you? Did you see Allah? Did you talk to Allah? Or was there something in philosophy that we call gradation? That the heavens were built, and the angels were created, and the angels descended upon this dunya, and the angels would communicate to the chosen ones, and the chosen ones would communicate to the ummah and their nations and their tribes, and only through them did you understand Allah, that what Allah wanted from you. It was the Khalifatul Ard that Adam was, that you must go to. This is the sunnah of Allah, that when Allah elects a Khalifa on the earth, you go to him. You don't go directly to Allah. Who do you think you are? Shaitan, who did you think you are? That when Allah asks you to do something, He says, I don't want to listen or obey you the way you want me to. I'll obey you the way I want to obey you. So if I were a guessing man, I'd say Abdul Wahab had a great communication with his real creator, Shaitan. I mean, at what point are we going to keep playing this game? Are you really worshiping Allah? For God's sakes, Muslims, you pray before a black cube. Is the black cube Allah? Is the Kaaba Allah? At what point are you going to stop these games? Shias are mushrikeen. They are mushrikeen. You know what the worst thing they did? And inshallah we can dim the lights and go towards tonight's musibah, inshallah ta'ala. As you know, the master of tonight's ceremony is none other than Fatima al-Sughra, the young daughter of Imam al-Hussein, who stayed back in Medina and didn't join the battle. Before I go there, the worst thing that this Wahhabi cult that hijacked Islam did was that they made two attempts. The first attempt, they weren't as successful, but the second time they were successful. The first attempt was in the 1800s. They went and destroyed in Jannat al-Baqi. You know, we had little shrine sites of the Imams. Imam al-Hasan alayhi salam, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Imam Baqir alayhi salam, Imam Sadiq alayhi salam. Half of the Imams were buried in Jannat al-Baqi. In the 1800s, these Wahhabis were under the directive that they have to go destroy the shrines. They went and did, but you know, as much as we don't like the Ottomans and we consider them different from us, they had a little bit of decency in their hearts, and they went and they rebuilt Jannat al-Baqi after these Wahhabis attempted to destroy it. In fact, it was the Ottomans that built and erected the Prophet's mosque, Masjid al-Nabi. And within that masjid, brothers and sisters, because they were Naqshbandi Sufis as well, they included the names of the 12 Imams that you can still see when you go to Masjid al-Nabi in the heart of Wahhabism. It burns them that the name of the 12 Imams that the Shia believe in are still there. So thank you, Ottomans, for not dishonoring your religion and destroying your religious sites. Brothers and sisters, in 1925, it is now the 100-year anniversary of the destruction of Al-Baqi. When Al-Saud took over Saudi Arabia, they bulldozed all of those shrines and they destroyed Jannatul Baqi. It was my first time being exposed to them when I was 13. I was taken to Medina and my mother said, Hadi, let's go to Al-Baqi. I was a little boy. I didn't understand what was going on. All I knew was I was following the caravan leader in Medina, and all of a sudden, I come to a place where I just see rocks on the ground. I said, Mom, what am I looking at here? And then one of their little sheriffs or security guards said, Shia, get out of here. You're not welcome. It was my first time experiencing this. I was taught that Islam is the right religion. I was taught that the Prophet was not racist and that Islam would look at everyone as equals in humanity. And then I saw a man spitting on us, telling us to get away from this area because he thought I was there to worship graves. You know, there was an old lady, a villager from Tabrizi. This is a very famous story in Iran. Her whole wish in her lifetime was go to Medina, visit the Prophet, and visit the shrines in Al-Baqi. She was a villager. She didn't know about politics. She didn't know about world affairs. So she went to a caravan leader, and he said, look, I have about 13,000 tomans. I don't have anything more to my name. How can I get to Al-Baqi with you? He looks, he sees, okay, I can cover this much for her, and I can rally up this amount for her. He says, just leave it with me. I will make sure that I'll take you to Allah. He felt bad for the old lady. She was a villager. Her whole life savings was in that 13,000. So he went, and a young man came to this caravan leader. He says, there's someone that really wants to come visit. Take this money and give it to her. He knew who it was. He didn't say much. He went to the lady. He said, keep your 13,000. You've been invited as a guest of Ahlul Bayt to Medina and go see the Holy Prophet. Finally, when she gets there to her hotel, she goes to the caravan leader and she says, can you please take me to Al-Baqi? I want to go visit Imam al-Hassan. I want to go visit Imam al-Sajjad. I want to go visit Imam al-Baqir. I want to go visit Imam Sadiq. I want to go visit the family of the Holy Prophet. And the man looked at her, and I don't think he realized that she didn't know what the current state was. So he took her to the shrines, and then he stopped there, and the woman looked around, and she said, where is it? He said, you see that little rock over there? That's Al-Hassan. Do you see that little rock over there? That's As-Sadiq, that's Al-Baqir, and that's As-Sajjad. She said, all I see is sand. Where are the graves of the Prophet's grandchildren? And he says, oh woman, they didn't let us keep them. She threw herself on the ground. She said, I don't want to return until I see these shrines go back up. Who has the heart to tell this woman that a long time ago this religion was hijacked by the enemies of the Holy Prophet and the enemies of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. But brothers and sisters, tonight's Rosa, tonight's Musiba is not about this old lady from Tabriz. Let us go to the hearts, let us go to the neighborhood of Bani Hashim and talk about Imam Hussein's sweet little daughter that often goes overlooked, Fatima as-Sughra sallallahu alayha. Fatima is now with her father, and her father is sitting at her bedside. Do you know why? Because this little girl was sick. In some narrations I've read that her legs wouldn't work well. In other narrations I read that she was very weak, and even sitting on a camel would be too troublesome for her. It's as if Imam al-Hussein knew that it was the last time he was going to see her. Do you know why, brothers and sisters? Because the narration says that Abu Abdullah al-Hussein took his hand and he began to place it in her hair. And he began to say, my little girl, make dua for me that I return. Brothers and sisters, you know the sunnah of Rasulullah, yes? You know that when Rasulullah would see an orphan, what would he say? He would say, oh people, when you see an orphan, run your hands through their hair. Every hair on their head is a blessing upon you, is a witness upon you on the day of judgment. Brothers and sisters, Imam Hussein sits with Fatima as-Sughra, and he's coming and he's caressing her hair for the last time. And you know, brothers and sisters, I have a daughter myself. You know what she says to me when I leave? Baba, when will I see you again? Do you know how much my daughter said, Baba, can you take me to your majlis this year? And I said, Baba, it's going to be too much for you. Your mother won't be around this year. I can't take care of you and do the majalis of Imam Hussein. May Allah bless you. Next time when you get older, I'll bring you. It's as if Imam Hussein, I remembered him when I said this to her, and it broke my heart. Because my daughter knows that I'm probably going to come back, inshallah ta'ala. But when Imam Hussein was looking at his daughter, he says, Ya Fatima, make dua that I return to you safely. He caresses her one last time, and she leaves. Fatima would now sit there for weeks and weeks waiting for her father to return from his journey. Every time she heard news of a traveler coming by, she would peek her head out in her weak state to see, is my father coming back or not? Is my father coming back from his trip or not? Until finally the news breaks out. Her auntie Zainab is on the way back to Medina. Allah. She runs to the caravan, scrimmaging, looking for her aunt in the crowd until she finally saw Sayyida Zainab. She said, Auntie Zainab, where is everyone else? Sayyida Zainab doesn't respond. She says, Auntie Zainab, where's my father? Where's my brothers? Where's my Uncle Abbas? Why is it that only the women return? Where is the rest of you? Sayyida Zainab begins to tear up herself. It's as if Sayyida Zainab was holding back her tears this entire time, that now when she sees Fatima as-Sughra, a sick little girl who's barely able to walk, she goes to her and she says, oh Fatima, let me tell you the story of what happened to your father Hussein. Let me tell you how they kept us thirsty for 3 days, that they let the dogs of the desert drink from the water. Amana's dil Fatima, this little girl that never met her father ever again. You know what she says? She says, I wish I was there to visit my father when he was buried. I wish I was there to see my father, but the narrations say that this little girl's tears would remain unfulfilled for the rest of her life. She would be too sick to travel, to go to Karbala and visit her father's grave. And just like how we, the Shias, after 100 years of losing Al-Baqi, would cry to say, we will never see Imam Hassan's grave again. We will never see Imam as-Sadiq's grave again. This little girl, Fatima as-Sughra, said, I never got a chance to see my father's grave. But Fatima, I wish I was there to tell you. I wish I was there to tell you. I wish your little sister Ruqayya was also sick as well, so that when she was in the prisons of Sham, they wouldn't throw her father's head at her the way they did. Oh Fatima, what did Ruqayya see when she was buried in Sham in the ruins? ألا لعنة الله القوم الظالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين والحمد لله.
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein,
Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین. اے چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. تجھے دیکھ کے مر جائے نا، تجھے دیکھ کے مر جائے نا، بیمار ہے صغرا. چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. گھر زہرا کا لٹنے کی خبر تو نے سنائی، تجھے دیکھ کے روتی ہے محرم میں خدائی. 1400 برس بیتے، 1400 برس بیتے ہیں، سب کرتے ہیں شکوہ. چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. ملنے کے لیے بھائی سے بے چین پڑی ہے، کب سے علی اکبر کی یہ راہوں میں کھڑی ہے. بچھڑی ہے یہ مدت سے، بچھڑی ہے یہ مدت سے، اسے تو نہ نظر آئے. چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. تجھے دیکھ کے مر جائے نا، تجھے دیکھ کے مر جائے نا، بیمار ہے صغرا. اے چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. گن گن اے چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. گن گن کے تو صغرا نے یہ دن ہے گزارے، زندہ ہے تو اکبر کے یہ وعدوں کے سہارے. دن رات تڑپتی ہے، دن رات تڑپتی ہے، اسے اور نہ تڑپائے. چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا، چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا. ویران گھروں میں نہ اسے نیند ہے آتی، اکبر کی جدائی ہے اسے خون رلاتی. قدموں کے نشاں ڈھانپ کے، قدموں کے نشاں ڈھانپ کے بیٹھی ہے سرے راہ چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا تجھے دیکھ کے مر جائے نا تجھے دیکھ کے مر جائے نا بیمار ہے سغرا چاند محرم کے تو بدلی میں چلا جا یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
عباس آ رہے ہیں 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 ایک ہاتھ میں علم اور مشق سکینہ عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس پیاسا ہے شیر گھاٹ کا رستہ نہ روکنا آنکھیں جھکاؤ شیر کی جانب نہ دیکھنا کیسے بچے یہ جان یہ لازم ہے سوچنا عباس ہے جلال میں عباس ہے جلال میں عباس ہے جلال میں ہرگز نہ ٹوکنا عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس دیور بتا رہے ہیں قیامت اٹھائے گا تیرے نظر سے اس کی خدا ہی بچائے گا آیا جو سامنے وہ آیا جو سامنے کوئی وہ مارا جائے گا ایک مشق میں فرات کو ایک مشق میں فرات ایک مشق میں فرات کو بڑھ کر دکھائے گا عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس قبضہ ہوا فرات پر القصہ مختصر پانی کو دیکھا پھٹ گیا عباس کا جگر آنکھیں لہو لہو ہوئی بچوں کی پیاس پر بالی سکینہ بچوں سے بالی سکینہ بچوں سے کہتی رہی ادھر عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آیا علم ضرور مگر خون میں بھرا زینب نے سر کو پیٹ کے شبیر سے کہا کیوں خم کمر ہے آپ کی غازی کہاں گیا بولے حسین اب کوئی بولے حسین اب کوئی پیاسا نہ دے صدا عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں عباس آ رہے ہیں یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین قافلہ سالار بلا قافلہ سالار بلا کہ مرا میبری قافلہ سالار بلا کہ مرا میبری از سر نقش پدرم به کجا میبری از سر نقش پدرم به کجا میبری وا حسینا وا حسینا وا حسینا وا حسینا سینه سوزان مرا سینه سوزان مرا تو کتک میزنی، سینه سوزان مرا تو نمک میزنی، عمه مظلوم مرا تو کتک میزنی. عمه را مزن، عمه را مزن، که او بود جان من، که او بود جان من. واه حسینا، واه حسینا، واه جسم شریف شهدا به زمین مانده است، جسم شریف شهدا به زمین مانده است. بر بدن بی سرشان اسبها رانده است، بر بدن بی سرشان اسبها رانده است. اون بدنهای پاک، اون بدنهای پاک شده غلطان و خاک، شده غلطان و خاک. واه حسینا، واه حسینا، واه حسینا، واه حسینا. ای تن پاکت به زمین به سر نیزه است، ای تن پاکت به زمین به سر نیزه است. ظلمت شب چون رسد چه کند دخترت، ظلمت شب چون رسد چه کند دخترت. من در این قتلگاه، من در این قتلگاه بکی آرم پناه، من در این قتلگاه بکی آرم پناه. واه حسینا، واه حسینا، واه حسینا. یا حسین صلوا علی محمد و آل محمد.